Welcome to another deep dive, and big shout out to Aerial Decisions for partnering with us on this one. They're the real experts when it comes to this stuff, and we're so grateful for their support of the Construction Innovators Network. So today, we're talking RTK drones in construction. Imagine this.
hmm
You're a construction manager. Drones are becoming like indispensable on site, right? But now you've got this big choice to make. Do you invest in building your own drone team, or do you go with a specialized provider?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question these days. And to really make that call, you've got to understand the tech, especially this thing called RTK.
RTK, okay, break that down for us.
It stands for real-time kinematic, and it's a satellite navigation technique that basically supercharges your drone's GPS accuracy. We're talking centimeter-level precision here, not just getting you in the ballpark.
Centimeter level, wow, that's impressive. But I guess I'm still wondering, like, why is that level of accuracy so critical in construction? I mean, can't a regular drone give you a pretty good overview of the site?
Think of it this way. Imagine trying to hit a bullseye on a dartboard. Standard GPS. That gets you somewhere on the board, which might be okay if you're just messing around.
Right, just having fun.
Exactly. But RTK.
Yeah.
RTK nails the bullseye every single time. And in construction, where even tiny errors can cost you big time, that kind of precision is a total game changer.
Okay, no more wild throws, got it. But how does this RTK thing actually work? It sounds kind of like magic.
No magic, just some really clever engineering. So you have a base station set up at a point where you know the exact location, and that base station sends correction signals to your drone, like constantly, in real time.
Ah, so it's always getting feedback, like a GPS guardian angel making sure it stays on track.
Exactly. And because of that constant stream of data, you eliminate all that drift and inaccuracy you get with regular GPS, giving you that super precise centimeter level data we were talking about.
Gotcha. And now we're talking about some real applications. Precise maps, accurate volume calculations for all those materials, and then, of course, you can track the progress of the project in such detail.
And you can catch potential problems before they become big, expensive headaches.
Okay, I'm starting to see the appeal here, but let's talk brass tacks. If I decide to, you know, build my own in-house drone team, what kind of equipment, what kind of expertise are we talking about?
Well, you've got to start with the main attraction, the RTK-enabled drone itself. Then, of course, you'll need that base station to send those real-time corrections.
Right, the Guardian Angel headquarters.
And depending on the project, how much accuracy you need, you might also use what are called GCPs, ground control points. These are like precisely measured points on the ground that help the drone make even more accurate maps.
Okay, so it's more than just the drone. It sounds like I'm setting up like a little mini aviation department here. What about the people part of this equation? Do I need licensed pilots on my team?
Absolutely. If you're flying drones for any commercial purpose, and construction definitely falls under that umbrella, the FAA requires you to be Part 107 certified.
Part 107, is that like a special license?
Yeah, you have to pass an exam, covers airspace regulations, safety procedures, all that. So there's definitely some training involved.
So it's more than just buying a cool gadget and launching it into the air.
Right. And we haven't even talked about the data processing side of things. You need specialized software to take all that raw data from the drone and turn it into those really cool 3D maps and models you need for the project.
So there's a learning curve to this, a real investment in the people, the training, the software, all that. It's making me think about the other option, outsourcing. What's the upside there?
Outsourcing can be a smart move, especially if you're a smaller company or you've got those shorter projects.
Yeah, you don't need a full-time team all the time.
Right. You get to tap into all that expertise and technology without the massive upfront investment. Think of it like, renting a luxury car for the weekend instead of buying it.
Yeah.
You get all the bells and whistles without the commitment.
Okay, I like that analogy, but I got to ask, handing over control of all that data, that must make some people nervous.
It's a valid concern, but the good news is reputable drone service providers, places like Aerial Decisions, they prioritize data security. They've got really strict protocols in place, and you can even look for providers that are SOC2 compliant.
SOC2, that's like a gold standard or something?
It means they've had like a really thorough audit of all their data security practices, so you can feel pretty good about things.
All right, so outsourcing seems like it could be a good fit depending on your needs. But even with all this amazing technology, can we just forget about licensed surveyors? I mean, where do they fit into this whole drone-powered world?
You're hitting on a really important point, and that's something we need to break down carefully. Just because RTK drone maps are incredibly accurate Doesn't mean we can just throw out the rule book on surveying altogether.
Okay, so it's not a case of drones replacing surveyors.
Not at all. It's more about understanding what each one brings to the table and how they work together. Let's dig into that in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we've established that RTK drones give us some pretty amazing accuracy, but they don't completely replace those licensed surveyors. I guess I'm wondering, why are surveyors still so important, especially now, when drones can map pretty much anything?
It's a good question. Licensed surveyors, they bring a whole set of skills that goes way beyond just taking measurements.
Huh.
They have this deep understanding of land ownership, all the legal stuff, boundary laws.
So they know their stuff, and their work actually means something, like legally speaking.
Yeah, their work carries legal weight. You can use it in court, land disputes, official documents, all that.
So it's not just about getting the numbers right, it's about the whole legal context. Okay, that makes sense. But how do these two worlds actually work together? You got this high-tech world of drones, and then the, I guess, more traditional world of surveying.
It's all about collaboration, figuring out what each one does best. The ideal situation, you involve the surveyor throughout the whole project from the very beginning, the planning, the design, all the way to those final surveys when the project's done.
So it's like a partnership, not a competition.
Exactly. The surveyor can give you really valuable feedback early on, make sure you're meeting all the legal requirements, avoid those potential problems down the road. They can also help figure out the best way to approach the surveying itself, when to use the traditional methods, when to bring in the drones.
So use the right tool for the job. That's smart. But let's say a construction manager is listening to us thinking, okay, I need both. I need the drones, I need the surveyor. But where do I start? Which one comes first?
I can't emphasize enough how important it is to get everyone talking early on. Bring that surveyor in right at the beginning. Let them get a handle on the project goals, give their input on how to use both the drone data and the traditional techniques.
So it's about integrating these two approaches, not keeping them separate.
Exactly. Picture this. The drones go out, they capture tons of data, give you these really detailed maps, lots of insights, and then the surveyor steps in, brings all that expertise to verify the accuracy, establish those legal boundaries, create those official documents that hold up in court.
It's like a dynamic duo. Each one has their own superpower, and they're working together to keep the project on track.
Love that analogy. And as technology keeps getting better, we're going to see even more ways to combine these approaches. It's a pretty exciting time to be in construction.
It really is. Now, I want to circle back to something we talked about earlier. Building that in-house drone team or outsourcing to the experts. Knowing what we know now about surveyors and how important it is to have them on board, what are some things construction managers should think about when they're making that decision?
At the end of the day, it's about figuring out what works best for you, your specific needs, your resources, and your long-term goals. If you're a big company, you've got those ongoing, complex projects, the resources to invest in training, equipment, software, maybe building an in-house team makes sense, but it is a big commitment.
Yeah, you got to be ready for that. And I guess for the smaller firms, or if you've got those shorter-term projects, outsourcing to a provider like Aerial Decisions could be a smarter move.
Definitely. Outsourcing gives you access to that expertise, the top-of-the-line technology, and you can scale up or down depending on what the project needs, and you don't have to deal with the overhead of, running a whole department.
Plus, you can be pretty sure they're handling all the FAA stuff. Certifications, insurance, compliance, all the headaches. That's a big weight off your shoulders.
You got it. It all comes down to finding the approach that lets you achieve those project goals with precision and confidence.
I like that. So whether you decide to, build or buy, RTK drones are really changing how we do things in construction. But before we wrap up, I want to touch on that FAA Part 107 certification requirement we mentioned earlier. Can you break down exactly what that involves, why it's so important?
Sure. As I mentioned, the FAA requires anyone flying a drone for any commercial purpose, and that includes anything you're doing on a construction site to be Part 107 certified.
And that involves passing an exam, right?
Yeah, the exam covers a whole bunch of topics: airspace regulations, weather, emergency procedures, and of course, safe drone operation. It's all about making sure that anyone flying a drone for work understands the rules, can operate safely, responsibly.
So it's not just about knowing how to fly the thing. You got to understand the big picture, the airspace, safety, all that.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important to either have those certified pilots on your team or work with a provider that guarantees all their pilots are Part 107 certified.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. From those super accurate RTK drones to the crucial role of those licensed surveyors, and then how to decide whether you build your own drone program or, bring in the experts. What are some of the key takeaways you want our listeners to remember as they navigate this whole, evolving world of construction technology?
Well, I think the big one is embrace the technology, but don't forget about the human expertise. It's still so important.
That's a great point. It's about finding that sweet spot between innovation and experience.
Exactly. The second thing I'd say is do your research, ask questions, find partners that really align with your vision, your values, whether it's surveyors, drone service providers, software developers. Having the right partners can make a world of difference.
And don't be afraid to keep learning, keep exploring.
Okay.
Construction technology is always changing. There's always something new just around the corner.
So true. It's an exciting time to be in this industry. If we stay curious, we embrace those innovations, we can really shape a brighter future for construction.
Well said. It's been a fascinating journey. I hope our listeners feel ready to take that next step, whether it's learning more about RTK, talking to an expert, maybe even getting that Part 107 certification themselves. We'll be back after a quick message to wrap things up. And we are back for the final stretch of this deep dive into RTK drones and construction. After all this talk about drones and tech, I'm kind of thinking I should get my pilot's license.
Well, maybe hold off on that for now, but it's great that you're so fired up about this stuff.
I am. It's been an eye-opening look at this whole world of, pinpoint accuracy and high-flying tech.
We've covered a lot of ground, that's for sure.
Yep.
From those RTK systems to those, all-important licensed surveyors. And then that big question, build your own drone program or go with the pros.
And let's not forget all those FAA rules, especially that Part 107 certification.
Yeah.
It's a whole other layer of safety and responsibility we got to think about.
Got it. Drones are powerful tools and we got to use them the right way.
Absolutely. So as we wrap things up here, I always like to bring it back to our listener, that construction manager out there in the field. What's the one piece of advice you'd give them as they're navigating this whole exciting world of drones and construction tech?
I'd say start with a clear goal. What are you trying to achieve? What problem are you trying to solve? Is it getting better site surveys? Is it streamlining that progress monitoring? Is it improving communication with all those stakeholders? Once you've got that clear objective, then you can figure out how RTK drones and all this other cool tech can help you get there.
So don't just jump on the bandwagon because, drones are cool. Have a plan.
Exactly. Figure out what you need and then find the tools to match. And don't be afraid to, reach out to the experts. Talk to other people in the industry. There's a ton of resources out there. Companies like Aerial Decisions, they're dedicated to helping construction folks harness all this amazing drone technology.
And they've been such a great partner for us on this deep dive. Huge thanks to them for supporting the Construction Innovators Network.
It's been a pleasure chatting with you. I always love talking about how technology is changing the game in construction.
Me too. Well, folks, that's a wrap on this deep dive into RTK drones in construction. We hope you learned a thing or two, and maybe you're feeling inspired to, learn more about RTK, connect with an expert, maybe even get that Part 107 certification yourself. Until next time, keep innovating, stay curious, and keep building an even brighter future.